So today what I want to make for you is a Cuban style arroz con pollo. What I'm going to start with is I've got 5 bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs. I've got my pan has been heating up really nice for me here. And all I want to do is just put a little bit of salt and pepper on top of the skin, like that. And just a splash of olive oil. Just a little bit in there on the bottom. I'm gonna let that get going for just a little bit. Make sure it's there. And then I'm just gonna take my chicken thighs and I'm going to lay them in. You always wanna drop them in and kind of push them away from you. That way the oil wouldn't splash up. Just gonna kind of lay them in there. You can hear them already starting to sizzle. Okay. So anytime you handle fresh poultry or any type of meat, you always want to wash your hands right after so you're not getting into cross-contamination. You can see these are really starting to go here. And what we're doing is we're just browning the tops of them. We're starting to render that fat off of the skin so that we'll be cooking the rest of our vegetables here in a moment once these start to get browned a little bit. So I've already gone and I've chopped up my 1 whole white onion here. I'm also going to add some red bell pepper and some green bell pepper. So while these are going, I'll just kind of start chopping. I like to do a mix of red and green bell peppers when I'm making this dish. I like to do a mix of red and green bell peppers when I'm making this dish. The red ones are a little bit sweeter in taste, and the green ones, they're just not quite as ripe, so you get a little bit more of that bitter and sharper flavor of a bell pepper. So you just want to make little slices. They're about the same size as the onion there. Get them chopped up like that. Get them ready to go in the pot here in a minute. I'm going to check on my chicken. You want to just, make sure it's not starting to brown yet. Move around, make sure that there's contact across the entire bottom of the pan. And so in the Cuban style of arroz con pollo, as I mentioned, there's not heat. And these peppers here are not going to bring any heat as well. But when I get into getting these going, I'm going to explain to you in a minute here the types of spices that I'm using that are going to bring in some more heat for you. So there's my red one. I'm just going to use about half of this green one because I do have some green chilies that I'm going to add in there as well. Just kind of pull that back, come across, and just do kind of a rough chop here, making your pieces about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. I like to make mine look kind of rustic. And growing up as a child and then moving on, into my adult life, I've always been into cooking for the masses. And so family style. A lot of times we'd have a Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening dinner, and you could have anywhere from, 10 to 20 people stop by. Sometimes a potluck style, or sometimes you could just make a big pot like this and feed a whole bunch of people. So I'm going to start to turn these over for just a minute. You can see they're just starting to brown. And what we're doing is we're kind of par cooking them. So I'm going to pull them out of here in just about another 30 seconds or so and continue on with this process. But what we're doing, as I mentioned, is getting the fat is mixing with the olive oil. We're starting to get a little bit of color on the skin here. And we're already just about ready. This pot's working well for me today. So what I'm going to do is pull out my chicken thighs and just let them rest in this bowl. They're far from cooked. As you can see, they've only been in there for about 2 minutes. But we got a little bit of color. We got some nice fat rendered in the bottom of the pan, the pot here. And we're just going to put these to the side. So now what we're going to make is sofrito. Sofrito is basically a mix of vegetables and liquid to make a broth or a stock that you're going to cook your dish with. So I'm going to start with the white onion that I had already chopped. I don't need to add anything else to it. It's already got the olive oil and the the rendered chicken skin going in there. So you can hear those are already starting to sizzle. Now at this point I want to start increasing the heat on my pot, because eventually I'm going to get this all the way up to a boil with liquid. So I start now by bringing up the heat. And I like to add the white onions first. They tend to take a little bit longer than the peppers to render and to start to turn translucent. So I like to give those about 30 seconds to a minute longer than the bell peppers. So we've gotten there. So now I'm just going to start adding in my bell peppers. Okay, so we got those going. Stir those around, get them all married up there with those onions and starting to cook together here. Now while these are going, I've gone ahead and before we started, I peeled about 4 cloves of fresh garlic. Now what I want to do is again, this is kind of a rustic cut. I personally like, leaving the pieces of garlic a little bit bigger so that when you're eating the dish at the end, sometimes you get that special little bite. And if you're a garlic lover, garlic eater like I am, it can be a nice little bonus, from time to time as you're eating through your bowl of arroz con pollo. I'm just going to kind of chop those up there, and of course we're going to get the flavor going as well. Okay, so those are like there. I'm going to check on our bell peppers and onions. They're starting to look really good. It's sounding really good. So now I'm going to go ahead and throw in the garlic. Garlic really only takes about a minute is all you want to start to go into the simmer like that. So we're going to put that in there. We're going to start stirring that around, let the garlic continue to go. And then now we're going to start adding our spices. I've got quite an array of spices going here. I'm going to talk through a little bit about the blend and the amounts that we're using. What we're going to start with is a tablespoon of cumin and chili powder. So I'm going to put that in there. Tablespoon each of cumin and chili powder. We're going to add another tablespoon of dried oregano. I'm going to go ahead and give that a little stir. Start coating all those vegetables with the spices as I'm adding them. We're going to add a teaspoon of smoked paprika. And then 2 teaspoons of dried coriander. And dried coriander is basically the seed from the cilantro plant. There we go. And then this was the tablespoon of garlic. So we've got all of our spices in there. We're going to stir it around. Now we've got our vegetables are starting to turn translucent. They're starting to get soft. We've got a good mix going here. It's starting to kind of caramelize on the bottom of the pan, so you want to kind of scrape it and keep it going from there. Now what we want to do is add a couple tablespoons of tomato paste. This is going to add flavor of the tomato, obviously, but it's also going to work as a thickening agent down the road. So we add those in there. We start to stir. Now just as the vegetables were already starting to kind of caramelize and stick to the bottom of the pot, it's really starting to happen now with the tomato paste. So you don't want to wait long before you reach over and you grab a half a cup of white wine. This is just a regular Sauvignon Blanc. You can use Sauvignon Blanc, you can use Chardonnay, any type of white wine. You put it in when it's hot right here. You can see it's already starting to steam. I can smell the wine. It smells delicious. And at the same time, the alcohol is already starting to cook out. And I can use the liquid from the wine to loosen the bottom of the pan. So we're keeping everything stirred, everything going. I've got a really nice sofrito started here. Next up, a good old can of beer, 12 ounces of beer. And we're just going to put the whole thing right in there. Now I took this beer out of the fridge several hours ago so that it could get room temperature, because I don't want to take the heat that I've built and put it in a cold beer and have it drop right down. So I like to take the beer, when I know I'm going to make this dish, I take the beer out of the fridge in the morning, even if I know I'm going to use it for that night. That way you can see even after adding that full beer, it's still simmering, which is perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. I didn't want to lose any of that great heat that I've got going. So now I've got the pot all the way up to high. because we want to get this really, really boiling here in a minute. The next thing that I'm going to add is 2 cups of chicken stock, not broth, chicken stock, bringing my total amount of liquid to 4 cups. So for this particular recipe, I want to have 4 cups of liquid because later I'll be adding 2 cups of rice. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio. By the time it cooks and everything, you'll see at the end, it's going to be a perfect arroz con pollo for you. So adding the stock, it kind of simmered down a tiny little bit there, but that's okay. I've got it on high. It's going to come right back. Now's when I want to take this chicken that I pulled out earlier, and I want to just kind of slide them back in there perfectly into the pot. Get this spoon out of here. I want to add these back in, move them around a little bit, make sure that the liquid gets on top. You can see it just the tops of the chicken is sticking out now. And it's looking really good and it's smelling delicious. I can smell beer, wine, tomato, and all those spices already getting going here. So I've got my 5 chicken thighs back in there. I'm going to move them all around. Make sure that everything's submerged perfectly like it is. Now it's going to take another couple of minutes to come to a boil, and then we'll be right back. All right, so now we've got a great boil going on our chicken in the pot here. Sofrito's going, everything's going. Right before we close this thing up to do its master cooking, we're going to add the juice from 2 limes. And then I mentioned earlier, you know, the Cuban version of arroz con pollo versus the Mexican version, and all the different, everywhere in between has different stuff. I like to add some green chilies. These are like a medium green chili. This is right from the can. I like to add them in there right towards before the lid goes on, like that. That's just 1 can, little 4-ounce can of some green chilies. Stir it around. We've got our boil going. What we want to do now is add the lid. We're going to reduce it down to a simmer. And this is going to go for 30 minutes. And what I'm going to do now is take a little break, reset for the next course, and we'll be right back. Now it's time for the next step on the process of our main dish here. So this has been simmering nicely, nice and low and slow for the past 30 minutes. At this point, I like to turn the heat all the way back up because we want to bring it up to a rolling boil in a second, and I'll show you why. So I've got the heat all the way back up. That's going to start to boil again. Now what I want to do is pull my perfectly cooked chicken thighs out at this point. They're done. We don't need them to cook any further. They're going to be perfect, moist, tender deliciousness at the end of this thing. So I'm going to pull, make sure I put 5 in, I get 5 out. It's also a good idea to kind of check and just make sure. Sometimes when you lift them, they could fall apart. You don't want a bone to drop back in or anything like that. So I'm getting them all out pretty clean. So these are going to sit over here to the side, and they're just going to start to kind of cool for a few minutes. Now I brought the heat back up because if you remember, I started with 4 cups of liquid between the beer, the wine, and the broth, and the stock. Between the beer, the wine, and the stock, I started with 4 cups. I lost a little bit through evaporation and cooking, but that's okay. So the next thing I want to do, and the reason it's okay is because I'm going to add a full jar of green olives with stuffed pimientos with the brine and everything. So any of the liquid I might have lost right now, even through this evaporation, it's being replaced with the olive brine and all of the olives. Just dump them all in there. There we go. No olive left behind. They're all in there, okay? And then I've got 2 cups of white rice. I've already gone through, and I'll just talk really quick about the rice. Some people prefer to rinse. Most people prefer to rinse, especially depending on the dish. What I've done is I've gone through and I've rinsed the rice so that the starch kind of rises in the water. It turns cloudy. You drain it off, you wash it again, drain it off until the water's, I'm not so stuck on my particular dish on it being perfectly clear, but you want to get rid of most of the cloudiness of the rice water. So it's been rinsed, it's sitting here waiting. 2 cups. We got a nice boil started here again on our arroz con pollo pot. I add in the rice. You can see it didn't even lose any of its boil. I just give it a quick stir. I can hear it simmering. Now we're just going to cover it right back up, and we'll see you again in another 25 minutes. Okay, all right, we're back. And while we were away, I went ahead and I took our 5 chicken thighs that we'd pulled out of the arroz con pollo earlier. They'd cooled a little bit, and I went ahead and shredded them. Took them off the bone, and they're just in kind of a variety of sizes. I mean, I like making it kind of rustic looking. When you see it later on the plate, you'll see what I mean. People can kind of reach in and dive in and have a bigger piece, smaller piece, whatever. So that's all off the bone. Our rice is now cooked. What I'm gonna do is just kind of take the lid off here. Looks great. The rice is actually a little bit on the surface there. And I'm just gonna add my chicken in, all of it. Scoop it right in there like that. Now the key here is to not stir it in, because you don't wanna create extra friction on the rice. It could start to get gummy, things like that. So I just put it on top, and then I just gently fold it. Bring the rice from the bottom, stir the chicken in. You can see right there. I mean, it's just lovely. I can pick up a spoonful right there, and I've got all the ingredients right there in one spoonful. So what I'm doing is just kind of gently folding it in. We're gonna stir it a little bit more when we go to plate. So just kind of get it all back in there. Put the lid on. It's on just warm right now, so we're not worried about that anymore. All right, we're back, ready to plate and have a meal, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and show you my preferred way to plate it up. Again, this is meant as like a family style meal. So what I like to do is serve it right out of the pot. It's been cooking in the pot. The whole thing happened right here in this Lodge cast iron pot. So I'm gonna remove that. You can see now all the liquid is pretty much reduced down. There's very little in there. You've got flaky rice. I can see the olives, the chicken, the peppers, everything is just right there waiting for me. So I'm gonna come in, just give it a light turn just to pull some of that chicken from the bottom that's been sitting on the closer to the heat to the top. But really every spoonful at this point is gonna be pretty much identical. So I'm just gonna dive in here, take a nice spoonful out, put it right there in the middle of my plate. I mean, you can already see it. You've got color, you've got the red peppers, the green, you got pieces of chicken sticking out. Look at that, just right there. So, it's a pretty hefty serving, to be honest with you. This is a pretty filling dish, so this pot right here will probably serve 8 to 10 people easily. So I'm gonna stop right there with that one. Some people just go right in and eat it as is. It's kind of a, you know, different strokes for different folks kind of a thing. What I like to do is take a little sour cream, and I squeeze a lime in there, you know, probably about a half a cup of sour cream, 1 lime, and then just whip it so that it's not like a clumpy sour cream, it's more like a crema, you know, it kind of runs a little bit, and it has a little limey kick to it. I like slicing up a little avocado if it's available, and a little bit of cilantro. So if I'm gonna plate this for myself right now, which I am, I'm gonna take a little bit of avocado, kind of put those like that. Okay, then I can dive into my sour cream, my lime crema, put a little bit in there, maybe off the side a little bit. Then I want to just take a little bit of fresh cilantro. You know, we had the coriander in there in the base. Just sprinkle a little bit of that on there. And we're good. That's your arroz con pollo.